South Park just dropped the most controversial episode in television history, and Canada is at the center of it all. After a nearly 3-year hiatus, creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone came back swinging with Season 27's premiere, depicting President Donald Trump as a gay, Iraqi-Canadian dictator, in bed with Satan himself. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. While the White House is fuming, Canadians are having the last laugh. The episode, titled Sermon on the Mount, aired on July 23, 2025, just hours after Parker and Stone signed a massive $1.5 billion deal with Paramount. And they wasted no time biting the hand that feeds them. The show resurrects the character of Saddam Hussein, but with a Trump makeover. Same flapping head animation, same voice, same abusive relationship with the devil. The only difference? This time, he's running America while claiming Canadian heritage. The White House response was swift and brutal.
The integrity of Kuzma. Okay, our negotiators have said we are not going to implement tariffs on any products that are covered under Kuzma. Canadians have said, well, those guardrails are off. Canada is calling into question the future of Kuzma. It's not the United States of America. It's Canada.
Press Secretary Taylor Rogers called South Park fourth-rate and claimed the show hasn't been relevant for over 20 years. But that's exactly what makes this story so fascinating. Because while Trump's administration is having a meltdown over cartoon satire, the real victims of this portrayal, Canadians, are responding in the most Canadian way possible. This controversy comes at a particularly tense moment in U.S.-Canada relations. The U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Huckstra, recently warned that Canada's retaliatory tariffs are threatening the future of the USMCA trade agreement. In what panelists described as recounting an alternative history of recent events.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was remarkable listening to the interview. You had the sense that he was recounting an alternative history of what had happened in terms of the notion that Canada had somehow attacked the United States using tariffs, when in fact, of course, we know that the tariff war that was launched by President Trump hit Canada first and hit Canada hardest of all of the U.S. trade partners. I was also really struck by the fact that his tone and his comments about Kuzma are increasingly pointed, and you really have the sense and the idea that there is a threat implied there, that if Canada doesn't come to heel on some of these irritants, as he calls them, like the retaliatory tariffs, that Kuzma itself, which of course is what's providing the bulk of protection to Canadian trade right now, might be in jeopardy.
Ginny, did you also sort of take away that there was a new level of pointed threat on the table there? And should that sort of shape how Canada responds to deal with the ongoing trade war?
The discussion highlighted how Trump's tariffs hit Canada first and hardest of all U.S. trade partners. Yet somehow Canada is being framed as the aggressor for responding with countermeasures. The economic stakes are real. Lumber tariffs have increased to 35%, creating a devastating impact on Canadian lumber businesses.
Oh, it's really painful. I know, talking with my forestry and parks minister, that has seen the tariff go up to, I believe, 35%. Is going to be really devastating for a lot of businesses. I know that there are many that are barely holding on, and we've got to, again, look for ways that we can find new markets. It's going to be complicated. We have an opportunity, I think, with the CN export line to Port au Prince Rupert that gets us into the Asian markets. We have had some success in Japan and South Korea in exporting wood pellets to be used for energy, and I think that there's the ability for us to be looking at the potential for lumber and other wood products. But make no mistake, I mean, the principal relationship and recipient of those goods are America. And so to have that kind of devastating tariff is
Many companies are barely holding on, with the speaker noting that America is the principal recipient of Canadian wood products, making these tariffs particularly harmful. This creates a ripple effect throughout all Canadian provinces with forestry industries, including Alberta. Yet despite these real-world tensions, Canadians are responding to South Park's satire with humor rather than outrage. On the South Park subreddit, one Canadian fan posted their mock outrage. "As a Canadian, I am insulted by the way Donald the Diddler on the Roof Trump is portrayed. But the response from fellow Canadians was pure gold. "Hey, relax, guy," the top commenter advised, using the exact phrase Trump steals in the episode. Another fan questioned, "But Saddam Hussein was all right?" before clarifying, "No, I'm JK, I hate him too." The most telling response came from another Canadian viewer. "Well, as a Canadian, I actually found the episode really funny, and the reason I got back into South Park. Relax, guy." This perfectly encapsulates the Canadian approach to the controversy. They're not offended, they're entertained. But to understand why this hits so differently, we need to examine South Park's long history with Canada. For 28 years, Parker and Stone have been roasting America's northern neighbor mercilessly. They've mocked Canadian accents, portrayed them as having flapping heads that split in half when they talk, and even had a previous version of Trump literally nuke Canada in earlier episodes. Any thin-skinned Canadian stopped watching South Park decades ago. The genius of this latest portrayal isn't just the Trump-Saddam Hussein connection, it's how it reflects real-world tensions. In the episode, we see Trump arguing with the Canadian Prime Minister over tariffs, echoing the actual trade disputes that have strained US-Canada relations. "Why are you placing these new tariffs on Canada?" the animated Prime Minister asks. "What are you, some kind of dictator from the Middle East?" Trump's response, "You don't want me to bomb you like I did Iraq." When corrected that he bombed Iran, Trump dismisses it. "Iran, Iraq, what the hell's the difference? Relax, guy." This "relax, guy" catchphrase is particularly significant because it's quintessentially Canadian. In South Park's universe, Canadians end every sentence with "guy" or "buddy" or "friend." By having Trump adopt this speech pattern, the show is suggesting he's absorbed the worst aspects of both American aggression and Canadian passive aggressiveness. The real Trump has made similar claims about Canada's compliance with US demands. In recent statements, he's asserted that under his leadership, the country has regained international respect, claiming Mexico does what we tell them to do.
Remember when Joe Biden used to always go, "I need legislation, I had no legislation. I just said we're closing the borders," and the whole world understood it because they respect your country again. They really respect this country again. They didn't respect it. When he said it, it didn't mean anything. But now they know it meant a lot. And Mexico does what we tell them to do, and Canada does what we tell them to do, because we have the two borders. We have the northern border, the southern border, and they were both horrible. But now it's some people say it's a miracle.
And Canada does what we tell them to do, describing the transformation of both borders as what some people call a miracle. Trump has also made bold claims about collecting tens of billions and trillions of dollars in tariff revenue from other countries.
And yet our country's taking in tens of billions of dollars and trillions of dollars, actually trillions of dollars in tariffs. And you know all about it. It's been amazing. They say, "Why are we taking in so much money?" Last week they found $29 billion and they couldn't figure out where it came from. I said, "Check the tariff shelf." And they said, "How did you know that's where it came from?" We're taking in billions and even trillions of dollars in tariffs, paid by other countries who, frankly, were taking advantage of us for many, many years. And they were doing that to us, but our people didn't know it. We didn't have smart business people.
He recounted an anecdote about officials discovering $29 billion and not knowing its source, which he claims came from tariffs. Though economists note that tariffs are actually paid by importers and typically passed on to consumers through higher prices. The episode's most controversial scenes show Trump in bed with Satan, recycling the exact same relationship dynamic that Saddam Hussein had with the devil in the 1999 South Park movie. Satan even tells Trump, "You remind me of a guy I used to date," making the connection explicit. But unlike Hussein's character, this version of Trump is depicted with what Satan describes as a teeny tiny penis, adding another layer of humiliation to the portrayal. The White House's furious response reveals something important about power and satire. When you're the most powerful person in the world, being mocked by a cartoon should be beneath your notice. But Trump's administration felt compelled to issue an official statement calling the show desperate and uninspired. This reaction only amplifies South Park's message and gives the episode more cultural power than it would have had otherwise. Canada's measured response stands in stark contrast. Rather than official condemnation or diplomatic protests, Canadian viewers are responding with humor and self-awareness. They understand that South Park's Canada has always been a funhouse mirror version of reality, not a serious political commentary. The fact that Trump is now associated with this cartoon version of Canada is more insulting to him than to them. The timing of this episode is particularly significant. It aired during a period of heightened tensions between the US and Canada over trade policies, with Trump's administration threatening new tariffs and even joking about annexing Canada. By making Trump canonically Canadian in the South Park universe, the creators are suggesting that his aggressive policies toward Canada are a form of self-hatred, attacking his own roots. There's also a deeper historical context here. South Park's version of Canada has always represented American anxieties about politeness, multiculturalism, and social democracy. By making Trump Canadian, the show is suggesting that even America's most aggressive nationalist leader is secretly influenced by the values he claims to oppose. The episode's production timeline adds another layer to this story. Parker and Stone created this episode knowing it would air just hours after signing their billion-dollar deal with Paramount, the same company that recently settled a $16 million lawsuit with Trump. The show explicitly references this settlement, with Jesus Christ warning the townspeople. You guys saw what happened to CBS? Yeah, well, guess who owns CBS? Paramount. Do you really want to end up like Colbert? This meta-commentary on corporate censorship makes the Canadian angle even more pointed. Canada, in South Park's universe, represents a place where people are too polite to fight back effectively. By making Trump Canadian, the show might be suggesting that America itself has become too passive in the face of authoritarian overreach. The episode's conclusion features a deepfake video of Trump wandering naked through a desert, imagery that recalls both biblical punishment and the wandering of exiled dictators. This connects back to the Saddam Hussein parallel, as Hussein ended his life hiding in a hole in the Iraqi desert. The implication is that Trump's fate will mirror that of other dictators who overreached. Canadian social media response has been overwhelmingly positive, with many users sharing clips and memes from the episode. The hashtag #BarkRelaxGuy started trending in Canada, with users ironically adopting Trump's bastardized version of Canadian speech patterns. This represents a form of cultural jujitsu, taking an insult and turning it into a source of amusement. The broader implications of this controversy extend beyond entertainment. South Park has always served as a cultural barometer, and the different reactions from Washington and Ottawa reveal something important about national character. The White House's thin-skinned response suggests an administration that takes itself too seriously, while Canada's good-natured acceptance of the joke demonstrates confidence and maturity. From a diplomatic perspective, this episode could actually help US-Canada relations. By making the conflict cartoonish and absurd, South Park deflates some of the tension around real policy disagreements. It's harder to take trade disputes seriously when one of the negotiators is depicted as a cartoon character with a micro-penis. The episode also serves as a warning about the power of satire in the digital age. Within 24 hours of airing, clips from the episode had been viewed millions of times across social media platforms. The White House's response only amplified this reach, turning a cable television show into a global news story. In trying to diminish South Park's relevance, the Trump administration actually proved its continued cultural power. Looking forward, this episode sets up potential storylines for the rest of season 27. With Trump now established as the new Saddam Hussein, viewers can expect the show to explore the parallels between American foreign policy and the domestic authoritarianism that South Park has been warning about for years. The Canadian connection provides a perfect vehicle for this commentary, as Canada represents everything Trump's America claims to reject: multiculturalism, universal health care, and diplomatic restraint. The episode's success, it reached #1 on Paramount Plus within hours of airing and achieved the highest cross-platform rating since 1999, proves that there's still an appetite for sharp political satire. In an era of increasing polarization, South Park's equal opportunity offense provides a space where different viewpoints can coexist even if uncomfortably. For Canada, being associated with Trump in the South Park universe is ultimately a backhanded compliment. The show is suggesting that even America's most nationalist leader can't escape Canadian influence. In the real world, Canada's soft power, its reputation for reasonableness and multiculturalism, continues to shape global perceptions, even when filtered through the lens of crude animation. The controversy also highlights the changing nature of international relations in the social media age. Traditional diplomatic protests have been replaced by meme warfare and viral videos. Canada's response to this episode, humor rather than outrage, demonstrates a more sophisticated understanding of how cultural influence actually works in the 21st century. As season 27 continues, viewers will be watching to see how South Park develops this Trump-Canada storyline. Will the show explore the historical connections between American populism and Canadian political traditions? Will they delve deeper into the psychology of leaders who attack their own cultural roots? Or will they simply continue to mine comedy gold from the absurdities of contemporary politics? One thing is certain, by making Trump Canadian, South Park has created a new framework for understanding American politics. The show is suggesting that nationalism and internationalism aren't opposites. They're twisted reflections of each other. Trump's attacks on Canada become attacks on himself, and his adoption of Canadian speech patterns reveals the artificial nature of his American identity. The episode's lasting impact may be its demonstration of how different nations handle criticism. America's official response was defensive and angry, while Canada's unofficial response was amused and self-deprecating. This contrast reveals something important about soft power and cultural confidence. The country that can laugh at itself ultimately commands more respect than the one that demands it. In the end, South Park's decision to make Trump Canadian isn't really about Canada at all. It's about America. The show is using its cartoon version of Canada as a mirror to reflect American anxieties about identity, power, and belonging. By making their most controversial president a citizen of their most mocked neighboring country, Parker and Stone have created a perfect metaphor for the contradictions at the heart of contemporary American politics. The White House may be raging, but Canada is relaxing, and in the world of South Park, that might just make them the real winners. As one Canadian fan put it perfectly, relax, guy. Sometimes the best response to being made the butt of the joke is to laugh along. That's a lesson in diplomacy that goes far beyond animated television.